Good evening. I welcome you to the next installment of the Slack Public Lectures. And our speaker today, we're very glad to have Dr. Wanlin Hu. She got her PhD. I guess she did her undergraduate training in Taiwan. She came to Purdue University where she got her PhD in 2017. Her thesis work was on the study of how humans behave in high stress environments. And she came here to start a number of projects on human machine interaction. And in particular, she was the principal author of a very interesting study of our accelerator operators here at Slack and their cooperation with the AIs that are now being put in place. So I thought this is something you folks would really want to hear. And so we're very glad to have Wanlin talk about this subject. She was a postdoc here and then a staff member. Now she's an independent consultant on human AI design. So Wanlin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Wanlin Hu, and thank you, Michael, for the introduction. I'm a human-machine interaction researcher, and today I'm here to share a story about people, machines, and how they work together. So our title is Humans Navigating Complexity with AI Helpers. It's about how human operators navigating the operation problems within complex systems with the help of intelligent tools, and also how our findings can inform the design, the development of the next generation intelligent tools. So before we dive into the world of complex tasks, I want to introduce a bit about myself. You may have noticed that my background is a bit of a mix. So actually, I started my undergrad in biomechatronics engineering. I built robots inspired by nature. And then I think, I need to master the math that makes this robot move. So I did my master's in electrical engineering, focusing on control theory. And then I realized that, okay, actually, the most fascinating part isn't just the circuits. It's actually the people behind the controls. So that curiosity brought me to Purdue, where I spent my PhD studying how humans develop trust in autonomous machines and how we design technology around humans instead of forcing humans to adapt to the technology. And this journey eventually brought me here to Slack, where I spent years to study the black magic of our accelerator operators. So first question, why are we here? Studying complex problems, navigating complexity sounds like a research question, but actually it's not. It's a global reality. So whether you are in a hospital, an airplane cockpit, or a power grid control room, the humans and machines must work as a team to make our world running. So to guide our study, I want to ask 3 questions. What does real human-machine collaboration actually look like? And second, how can we understand what experts are really doing in these complex systems? And third, where can AI step in to make humans stronger, not to replace them? But you know, those 3 questions sounds very big. That leads actually to a more basic question. If these systems are so complex, why can't we just automate everything? Why do we even need humans to be in the loop at all? So before we dive into our work at Slack, let's ground ourselves in some high-stakes environments that you're already familiar with. Because in the real world, actually, we found that the human elements, not just the machines, is the secret to safety and resilience. So let's look at 2 systems that we rely on to keep our world moving, that are aviation and power grid. Both aviation and power grid control, power grid management are environments where we as humans must navigate extreme complexity in real time. So think about flying. We all know that commercial aviation is the gold standard of safety, but we often forget that's because we have human pilots there to handle things machines just can't. While the computer are busy monitoring thousands of data points like temperature, altitudes, they don't really think. So when unexpected happens, the pilot are the ones that need to make those critical real-time decisions. And similarly, you can think of the power grid as the world's most complex and reliable machine. The operators, they manage the flow of the electricity across the vast invisible network. On a normal day, the network is mostly automated. But when an emergency happens, we need the human to step in, and they need to make life or death decisions just in seconds. Now, let me show you. There was a blackout in 2003. So what happened? Basically, it was a computer bug, and that left the operators just flying blind. So what happened? It triggered a massive outage across 8 states and part of Canada. The lesson here is clear. In these high-tech systems, humans must stay in the loop. Our goal with sophisticated automation is not to replace humans, but to give them the transparency and support they need to handle the unexpected. So what's the common thread here? We call it the human in the loop pattern. It's not about choosing between human expertise or intelligent automation. Actually, it's about how we combine them. We have the human expertise on one side and the intelligent, the machine capability on the other. So when we design those sophisticated systems, we don't try to move them from the process. Instead, we want to put human firmly in the control seat. And the machine can provide data, can provide calculation to make the human judgment even stronger. Because when unexpected happens, we still rely on humans to process all those unexpected, unforeseen events and to provide a critical decision just in seconds. And that is the essence of real human-machine collaboration. Now, how do we actually build tools that support this? It all comes down to 5 basic principles. First, understand your user. You have to know how they actually think about a problem. And then learn how they approach the problems. What mental models do they use? Third, design systems to support their strengths rather than compensate their weakness. And also, we need to make the system learnable. Don't for people to spend maybe 3-4 months just to figuring out the interface. And last but not least, we have to anticipate that errors will happen. So we have to design for resilience and recovery. These principles will matter in the story I'm about to tell you. So we just look at the core principles of human-centered design. Now, let's talk about why do we so dedicated to apply them here at Slack? It isn't about testing a theory. It's because the LCOS, the linear coherent light source, is arguably the world's most powerful X-ray laser we have to tackle global challenges. So think of it as a massive high-speed X-ray camera that allows us to see the world at the atomic level. So whether we are trying to engineer new ways to capture carbon to fight for climate change, or we mapping the structure of a virus to develop new drugs to save lives, the machine is the engine behind those breakthroughs. Because this mission is so urgent. We simply cannot leave its success to chance. And to drive these scientific breakthroughs, we need a central place where all those scientific goals are transformed into reality. Now, welcome to our accelerator control room. You can think of it like the cockpit of the whole facility. And this is the nerve center where our operators work 24/7. They carefully tune the machine. They deliver the exact X-ray pulses the researchers need for their experiments. And of course, it's a high pressure environment because the stakes is so high. So when you are in this room, you aren't just looking at numbers on the screens. You are managing the heartbeat of some of the most important science happening in the world today. And this is where our human in the loop philosophy hits the road. Again, you might be wondering, this is so complex. Why not just let the computer run the whole show? Because science at LCLS is not a factory line. It's constantly evolving. Every experiment is a new frontier. And on the frontier, the unexpected happens all the time. So you can't just set it and forget it. If you're doing something that's never been done before. In this room, the human is the navigator. And we have the intelligent assistant crunches those hyperdimensional parameters that are just too complex for any human to process alone. The operators remains the one making the critical strategic calls. And we fight for every second of meantime. Because for the scientists waiting for their turn, every moment is a chance for discovery. How precious is that time? Let's look at the numbers. To understand why we are so focused on human-machine collaboration, you have to understand the pressure these scientists are under. Operating the LCS is incredibly expensive. Anyone wants to guess how much to run it for an hour? I welcome any answer from, not from our accelerator control room operator. Anyone wants to make a guess? $20,000. Well, that's a lot. So when you combine the operational costs with equipment depreciation, we are looking at a burn rate for roughly $6,000 to $9,000 per hour. What does that mean? It's like a month rent in a luxury San Francisco apartment, and it's disappearing every single hour. But for the researchers, the money isn't even the hardest part. It's the access. You think getting a ticket to the Taylor Swift concert is difficult? Now, try getting time at LCLS. Only 1 out of every 4 proposals is accepted. So most scientists, they wait for months, sometimes even years for their specific window. And here's a real kick. If you finally get your time, but the beam quality is poor during your window, you don't get a second chance. There are no do-overs. Poor data just doesn't just mean a bad day at the lab. It could mean years of setback of a scientist's career. So our operators, what they do in the control room, they are not just tuning the machine. They are protecting a scientist's life's work. This is why we need to move beyond simple automation to an intelligent partnership that ensures every second counts. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Watch this 60-second video clip from our Slack communication team.
Here at Slack, we operate the most advanced X-ray laser source in the world, the LINAC Coherent Light Source, LCLS. In order to generate this laser, we accelerate electrons to nearly the speed of light. And as they pass through a hall of precisely aligned magnets, they make X-ray pulses of light that scientists can then use to observe atomic and molecular processes in real time. In the accelerator control room, ACR, highly skilled operators continuously monitor and fine-tune the system, adapting to changing conditions so that researchers receive the most precise and stable X-ray beam possible. Becoming an expert operator in ACR takes years. They must learn to recognize and to troubleshoot a myriad of issues. So a solution that worked for them yesterday may not work today.
Okay, that minute shows the reality. You see dozens of screens, hundreds of critical judgments, adjustments, and also because this machine evolves daily, mastering that intuition takes years. So that is why we study them. We aren't here to replace that expertise. We are here to decode it. By understanding what makes our best operators so good, we can build tools that give every operator superpowers to protect our science. To give you an idea about the challenge, we are asking operators to steer a beam through the final 2/3 miles of a 2-mile-long tunnel, and then hit a 330-foot magnet array with absolute perfection. To put that in perspective, that target is roughly the length of a football field. So a tiny error at the start gets magnified by the massive distance, which is why keeping the beam stable is a constant battle. Every decision in the control room is about more than just adjusting the perimeter. It's about determining whether today's experiment succeeds or failed. So our operators are the ones guiding that X-ray beam through the 2-mile tunnel towards the experimental holes. The experimental holes are here. We have 2 far experimental hole and near experimental hole. And in their hands lies the difference. Will a scientist make a major breakthrough today, or will they spend years waiting for another chance? So every adjustment made in the control room actually is a direct investment in the future of discovery. So let's bring it all back to our guiding questions for today. What does real human-machine collaboration actually look like? How can we understand what experts are really doing in complex systems? And where can AI step in to make humans stronger, not replace them? Are you ready to go inside a real tuning task with me and see the challenge for yourself? Buckle up. This is a diagram of the LCOS machine. And if you feel a bit overwhelmed, don't worry, I'm right there with you. Even this simplified diagram, simplified version, it shows just how complex, how intricate this machine is. So imagine being the operator responsible for managing the 27 unique interdependent parameters all at once to keep this system stable. One of their primary tasks is tuning for brightness. Brighter beam means more X-ray photons available for scientific experiments. Most of the LCOS is designed to accelerate and shape an electron source beam. The source beam interacts with the specialized magnets at the end, called undulator. So if you follow the arrow from the left to right, you see a high-stakes reaction chain. The source beam, because every stage affects the other. So if the source beam is not stable after the acceleration, then the undulator cannot produce bright X-rays. And also, LCOS is not a one-size-fits-all machine. It's more like a Swiss Army knife for science. We have multiple specialized instruments downstreams in the near experimental hole and the far experimental hole. and each one is dedicated for a different type of discovery. So for example, one scientist might be looking at the structure of a virus, and they may need a very fast, short pulse. The next one might be studying the extreme matter and requires massive energy density. So what does that mean? That means perfect beam does not exist. It's always custom tailored. Every time a new experiment starts, our operators have to reshape and retune the beam to meet those specific, unique demands. This is why the target is always moving. And more than that, starting conditions change every shift. What worked yesterday won't work today. So operators need to organize all related information to make predictions and decisions at every moment. They need to monitor, process a lot of information. It's like chess. There are infinite possible game states, but no human can explore all of them. And again, to make the beam brighter, our operators have to tune the 27 different parameters. Now, think about the order in which you adjust them. You have 27 choices for the first knob you turn. And once that's set, you have 26 choices for the next one, and then 25 for the one after that, and so on. In mathematics, we call it 27 factorial. And the result is approximately 10 to the power of 28. It's a number that's so large, that's even larger than the number of molecules in your own body. So no human can possibly explore all these options in a lifetime, let alone in an 8-hour shift. So this is why our operators must rely on heuristics and the intuition to navigate this infinite space. To navigate this 10 to the 28th nightmare, we look at the cyborg chess model. In advanced chess, it's a partnership where each side plays to its strengths. While the computer crunches the massive space of possible combinations, the human provides the high-level strategy and judgment to ensure every action is physically sound. So in theory, this is a perfect team. We combine operator intuition with with AI analysis to reach beam states that neither could achieve alone. But there's a critical factor we don't see in chess. We don't see risk and responsibility. At this multi-billion-dollar facility, good decisions are a critical part of safety. When our operators make choices, they understand that better performance cannot come at the cost of safety. Operators must make effective decisions under many constraints, including regulations, hardware limits, and program demands. So sometimes there is a trade-off between the idealized choice and other factors. Only by balancing all these factors do we get operations that are safe, reliable, and efficient. Operators in rich view of the problem make them great pilots of this complex machine. Again, the LCOS is a miracle of modern engineering. As the world's first hard X-ray free electron laser, it delivers a beam that's 1 billion times brighter than anything that came before it. To achieve this, we have truly mastered the machine. We have reached this level through complex system design and optimization. We rely on high fidelity physics simulation that predict complex electron bunch dynamics. We have implemented advanced control algorithms and automation that handle the heavy lifting of stability. And to push it even further, we leverage machine learning and AI to navigate the most intensive computational tasks. And when things go wrong, our automated protection intervene to prevent damage. But that's only half the story. The true mastery lies in our resilient recovery. Our operators, they use their expertise to diagnose the issue and bring the machine back to its golden state. And here comes the gap. We can simulate the physics, we can automate the protection, and we can build the hardware. But how about the strategic intervention from the operator I just mentioned? We still don't fully understand how humans master complex tasks. Why does this matter? It actually makes it hard to train newcomers effectively. How do you teach someone if you don't understand what the experts is actually doing? And it's hard to design AI that truly support experts. If you don't know how they think, then how do you design tools to help them? And third, it's hard to scale expertise across teams. If only a handful of people are experts, how do you share their knowledge with others? And this is the core of our research question. What if we could visualize how experts think? Instead of asking, what is the right decision right now? We ask, what is the pattern of decision over time? In other words, instead of studying single moments, we study the entire strategy. Again, think of it like chess. A grandmaster doesn't analyze every legal move. They recognize patterns and know multiple routes to victory. So we wondered, are operators doing something similar? What if expertise is like a mental subway map? Instead of having a rigid checking list, they navigate a network of patterns. If so, we should be able to visualize that network using graph analysis. And by comparing the novice and the expert network, we should see how expertise develops. And that's exactly what we did. With the visualization of expertise, we could understand which patterns emerge with experience, identify the shortcuts experts learn, teach newcomers the experts' mental model, and design AI that reasons the same way. The first minute of this video showed you the what operators do every day. Now let me show you the why we are studying them. This next clip explains our research approach. As you watch, I want you to notice the multidisciplinary team behind this work, the massive data we have collected, and also our goal, not to replace operators, but to enhance their expertise. Watch closely.
To take operation to the next level, we've been studying how operators become experts so that we can improve and speed up training and how artificial intelligence can assist them. Our team is using a multidisciplinary approach. We're combining cognitive science, human-computer interaction, and artificial intelligence so that we can understand how operators make decisions in such a complex environment. We've collected extensive data. This includes live control room observations, screen recordings, 14 years of operational logs, machine state data, as well as interviews that try to capture the operator decision-making process to uncover operator strategies. In the future, AI can assist operators with information retrieval and doing routine optimizations so that the operators can focus their energy on creative problem solving. But unlike machines,
you know why I stopped here? Because there's always a but. As the video highlights, our vision is not to replace experts, but to amplify them. But to do that, we first have to understand them. So yeah, I keep saying we have to understand expertise. We want to understand how experts think, but how did we do it? Okay, actually, we are sitting on a scientific gold mine. We have 350,000 operational records spanning 14 years. Historically, we have used this data to troubleshoot the machine, but we have rarely used it to decode the human. Every shift, operators write down their observations, their actions, and their results, all time-stamped. For example, look at these real entries. Okay, matched in LI 28, which led to a noticeable FEL gain. Now let's be honest. Even to me, it sounds like a cryptic foreign language. It's messy, it's full of jargon, and it is unstructured. This is where the challenge and the opportunity lies. So think of this process like archaeology. The logs are artifacts. We are digging to uncover the thinking patterns underneath. How did we turn text into visible strategy maps? We use network graph analysis. So put simply, it's a method to visualize the relationships between data points, or 27 parameters, so we can uncover the hidden patterns in how experts operate. Now let me walk you through our method in 5 steps. Step 1, digital archaeology. Again, we gathered 14 years of operational logs. These are the operators' diaries. It's the raw data. Step 2, translation. We use natural language processing to translate those not understandable sentences into standardized task labels the machine can count and categorize. And step 3, task graph construction. We look at associations. When an operator in their notes, they say they do task A and then task B, we draw a connection between these 2 tasks. And thousands of these connections create the visual map. It's the operator's mental map of the problem. And step 4, multi-level analysis. We scan the map at 4 different levels, from individual subtasks, the connections between them, communities of subtasks, I'll come back to the term later, and the whole complex task. Each level tells us something different about how expertise develops. And step 5, expert fingerprinting. So finally, we combine the novice network to expert networks using statistics. And the difference is the patterns that only appear in experts are what we call the expert fingerprint. And that's something we can build the training on, we can build the AI on. We categorize operators into 3 groups based on experience. Novices have less than 1 year of experience, so they are building awareness and they are learning which parameters exist. Intermediates, they have 1 to 4 years of experience. They are starting to see the patterns and connections. Experts have more than 4 years of experience. They refine strategies. They know the patterns deeply so they can make creative choices. Each group had hundreds of log entries, and we analyze how they differ. A traditional way to view decision-making is seeing it as a flow chart. There are step-by-step sequence, if-then logic, and only one correct path. So therefore, you follow a rigid procedure. Now imagine you are looking at a subway map. You will see stations and lines. You don't just follow a list. Multiple routes can exist. You navigate based on your destination. And that's exactly how we found experts think about the LCOS. So a skilled expert, they knows many routes, and a novice might know just one. And here's the important part. As I promised, I'll come back. We analyze at 4 different levels. Level 1 is the subtask level. So it answers which parameters matter most. Level 2 is the subtask connection level. It shows how parameters are connected. Which parameter pairs do operator adjust together? Level 3 is the community level. It reveals how parameters cluster. Which groups of parameters emerge? And level 4 is the whole complex task level. It illustrates what's the overall structure, how the entire strategy network differ between novice and experts. These 4 levels give us a complete picture from the micro level all the way to the macro level, the thinking patterns. And to understand expertise, we treated our operators like travelers in a complex city. We analyzed, so the 14 years of log, we can think it like their GPS logs. So it's the digital footprint left in their operational nodes. And we found that as the operators can experience their travel patterns change in a way that is statistically significant across 3 out of 4 levels of analysis. So whether we are looking at the big picture or tiny details, expertise leaves a clear, measurable trace on the map to see exactly how. Now we are going to look at the results through the lens of a subway map. These diagrams represent the network model of our novices, intermediates, and experts. Let's break down what you are looking at. The numbered circles are subtasks. Think of this as the stations you must visit to accomplish a specific operational goal. The lines between the circles represent the connections. In this visualization, the shorter the line, the stronger the connection. In a subway system, a stronger connection means you frequently visit those 2 stations in a single trip. So it's a high frequency route that defines how you navigate the city. Circles sharing the same color belong to the same community. Think of this as functional region, like a financial district or an industrial zone. It shows how operators group related actions together in their minds. And finally, when we view the whole network structure, we are looking at the entire city of complexity. This is the complete map of the complex task that our operators must master. Now, we will zoom in from the entire city down to the individual stops. Let's take our first trip. Now, let's look at what we discovered at the whole complex task level, viewing the entire city at once. When we step back and compare the structure, we found that experts map exhibits clearer functional zoning and robust connectivity. In other words, the expert city is highly organized, and their routes are more resilient to unexpected changes. And here comes the most interesting part when we zoom into the community level. Surprisingly, we found that all operators divide the 27 subtasks into the exact same 3 functional groups. So think of it this way. Even if you are new to a city, you eventually realize it's divided into specific regions. Our data shows that every operator, regardless of experience, naturally recognizes the same 3 regions at LCOS. The purple station represent the beam energy and compression region. The green stations belong to the beam transport region, and the pink stations cover miscellaneous control. This is our shared foundation. Everyone agrees where the stations are and what they do. The real difference, the true secret of expertise, lies in how they navigate between them. So now let's zoom into the subtask connection level. This is where we see the tracks of the city. We categorize these connections into 2 types. In community means staying within a region, and out of community means crossing into another region. The data revealed a striking contrast. Experts choose to cross the boundaries 60% more frequently than novices. Furthermore, we found that the connection strength in an expert's mind is much more balanced. While a novice routes list is skewed, meaning they lean heavily on just a few familiar paths, the expert utilizes the entire network with equal confidence. What does this mean in our subway city? That means the newcomer stays within one region because they're afraid of getting lost. But the local, they knows the secret transfer. They are jumping between these functional groups because they understand the hidden dependencies of the machine. They know that a problem in the energy region might actually require a quick trip to the transport region to fix. So they don't see the boundaries. They see a holistic, interconnected city. To summarize, novices often fall into loops of trial and error, like a tourist circling the same block. Experts, they take the express line, go directly to the solution because they've learned the high probability transitions that actually lead to success. Expertise isn't just about moving fast. It's about taking fewer unnecessary turns. And to further understand the structure of this expertise, we use dendrogram to map the hierarchy of how operators think. You can think of these heights of these branches as the mental distance between subtasks. Do you notice the trend? As expertise increases, the heights decrease. In other words, subtasks that seem worlds apart to a novice mind are actually grouped closely together in an expert's mind. A newcomer sees 27 individual stations and feels overwhelmed. But for an expert, the city shrinks. In their mental map, multiple complex tasks are chunked together into single efficient units. While a novice sees dozens of separate stops, an expert sees just a few major neighborhoods they can navigate in a single breath. And then let's zoom into the station level. To find the true centers of power in the city, we borrowed the PageRank algorithm, the same logic Google uses to rank websites. And we use it to identify the Grand Central Station of the LCS. In these charts, the taller the bar, the more central or influential the subtask is to the entire control task. And when we look at the results, we see a major shift in focus. Experts, they prioritize high leverage upstream hubs, such as electron gun voltage and beam position. They understand that these core stations control the flow of the rest of the city. If you master the upstream, the downstream follows. Novices, on the other hand, tend to cluster around local, easy-to-reach stations, mostly in the miscellaneous control region. So again, on the subway map, it's like a tourist staying near their hotel because they haven't yet grasped how the entire transit system is interconnected. While novices are busy fixing local symptoms, experts, they have the confidence to go straight to the source. They navigate the high leverage hubs that connect the power and power the entire city. This is the final shift, moving from where to why. A novice sees a light bulb is out and they keep checking the bulb. They check the symptom. An expert, they realize the issue is at the power plant, the source, and fixes the physics upstream. So by mastering the source of the city's energy, the entire system stabilizes. This physics-inspired strategy is the gold standard we want to teach our AI copilots. So what does this all mean for the future? Let me show you how our team thinks about bringing these insights together with AI.
But unlike machines, humans excel at adapting to new challenges, thinking creatively, and making judgment calls in unpredictable situations. So that's why the AI control room isn't about replacing operators. It's about enhancing their abilities and ensuring they can focus on the most complex, high impact decisions. Every decision made in the control room has a direct impact on scientists using the X-ray beam. Their work depends on the quality of the beam we deliver. And this is why accelerating operator training and bringing AI into the control room doesn't just improve accelerator performance, it drives better scientific discoveries.
So, in case you were too fascinated by the action in our busy control room, here's a quick recap. Notice the core message. AI handles the routine tasks. Humans handle the judgment and hard problems. This is the collaboration we are here to design. Now, let me connect our research findings back to this vision. So first, how do these mental maps change the future of AI as tech? Most AI today is built on imitation. It copies what we do. It's like a student memorizing an answer key without understanding the math. Our research offers a better way, syncing the AI with the expertise, with the expert's map. Also, we envision an AI copilot that doesn't just say, turn up A. Instead, it becomes a transparent partner. It might say, I suggest adjusting these upstream parameters because it stabilizes the entire beam energy output. So it finally starts speaking the same language as our physicists. And by explaining the why behind the what, we turn the AI from a mysterious black box into a trusted navigator. And because this AI understands the map, it can adapt. It provides a clear guided path for a novice who is still learning the whole system, while offering high-level strategic shortcuts for the expert who is ready to bridge them. The most immediate application of our research is in training. So usually you shadow an expert for years, trying to pick up their black magic shortcuts along the way. The problem is that this is inconsistent. And when an expert retires, their wisdom often walks out the door with them. Our research changes this by systemizing expertise. Instead of relying on years of shadowing, we can now provide a new operator with the literal knowledge map. We can explicitly teach them the functional groups and the bridges that experts use to navigate the machine. By moving to a supported self-paced learning model, we created clearer pathways for growth. And it speeds the onboarding from over a year to months and hopefully streamlines the path to expertise. And most importantly, it ensures that the collective wisdom of our best scientists is consistent across every team and preserved for the next generation. Beyond training, this research allows us to design AI that actually adapts to you. An AI shouldn't treat a 10-year expert the same way it treats a trainee. So for a novice, the AI would act more like a GPS with turn-by-turn directions. It provides structure, explains the basic physics, and builds their confidence by confirming they're on the right track. But as the operator grows, the AI also shifts. For the experts, it becomes a strategic partner. It stops backseat driving and instead offers high-level shortcuts. It flags unusual data patterns, or the AI can suggest novel strategies that might have been overlooked. It is the same system, but it is personalized to meet you exactly where you are in your journey from tourist to local. But we must be honest about the risks. If AI always provides the shortest path, do we lose our ability to troubleshoot? This is why we should design AI to be a co-pilot, not a captain, and it needs to be human-centered. It should challenge us asking, why do you think this is happening? To ensure that human remains the ultimate master of the physics. And this framework isn't just for Stack. Do remember our examples from the very beginning. Anywhere there are logs and expert decisions, be it a surgery room or a power grid, we can map expertise to build better helpers. Okay, to wrap up, I want to return to the 3 questions we asked at the very beginning. First, what does real human-machine collaboration actually look like? It's a synergistic partnership, a team where machines handle the overwhelming complexity, freeing humans to do what we do best, drive discovery. How can we understand what experts are really doing? We look at their mental maps. We've shown that experts aren't just following a checklist. They are navigating a deep structural network of physical causes. And where can AI step in to make humans stronger? Through augmented strategy. We have to respect and strengthen that human intuition with data-driven insights rather than trying to replace it. Where these 3 circles meet, we don't just find a more efficient control room. We will build human-centered AI and find the future of science discovery. Thank you for being with me till the end. I want to thank my amazing collaborator, Russo and Jen. And also, I want to thank our operations team and so many Stack staff who provided invaluable insights and guidance.
So, Wan Lin, thank you very, very much for this interesting talk.
Thank you, Michael.
We have time for questions. And actually, Jane and Roussel are here. So why don't I invite them up as well? And so the team, the whole team, why don't you go to the center, please? And you have you need a microphone. Let me finish and then we'll pass this around. So please raise your hand to have a question. This is being recorded, so please wait until you get the microphone and then speak your question and it'll be on the recording. And then any one of these people can answer. They've all provided different skills to this collaboration that you've heard about. So you'll hear their individual viewpoints. So please.
My question is, did you look at the good, the bad, and the ugly? And did you look at the errors and problems and the mistakes that were made during your research?
Certainly. We understand that there are mistakes that can be made both by people, the operators, which is why we want to augment their capacity with AI tools and other types of automation. We also understand that there's a risk to over automation, like Wan Lin discussed in the 2003 blackout. When you obscure too much information from critical human decision makers, you end up being vulnerable to uncertain situations crashing your system. So what we focused on in our pilot study, which this was trying to understand everything that's going on in the control room. And then what our hope is that with more data, more modes of data, we can get a better idea of what things are working and what things are not working. But one assumption we did make from the get-go to enable our research is that with time operating the machine, expertise is built. And we do see evidence of that in the data that we collected. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Hi, thank you. Do you, or before your work started, did you have a metric for beam success or experiment success or some parameter that could be measured? And are you measuring that now, or will you measure it in the future with this system being implemented?
Should I, this one? Yeah. So the challenge, as Wanlin discussed in her talk, is that what defines success really is ultimately that the machine is delivering the beam of the parameters requested to the users. And so our goal with the eventual design of AI and human teams is that we could improve the reliability of the machine. It's consistently performing at the expected parameters. We can improve the actual performance in terms of parameters like the beam brightness, which is one of the desirable parameters. And then also our ability, like Wanlin mentioned, of recovering from incidents in a timely manner. So those are all metrics that we considered. And in the research we've done so far, our goal was to identify the methodology for mapping these mental models that the people have so that then we could tie that into evaluating how those mental models are correlated to the performance metrics of the machine.
I would like to back up a bit from the Slack accelerators to think about complex systems that have been working very well before the advanced concepts that you've brought out, and in particular, the Tokyo subway system. As I understand it, the Tokyo subway system considers it to be a failure if a train arrives 10 seconds late or leaves 10 seconds early. Now, if you go to New York, the 10 seconds becomes 2 minutes. And nothing in what you talked about seems to address situations like that. They're both very complex systems, but on at least on a naive level, the Tokyo system is running much better and has been running much better for a generation, if not longer. No comment?
What is there a question?
Really? Okay. The concepts you talked about might be necessary for Slack, but for other complex systems, there were other methods and developed and used, and it just so happens that the one that runs the Tokyo subway system, which is probably in its way just as complex as your systems, was developed one, if not 2 generations ago, 50 years ago, and has worked very well. And is there anything in the way you talk that addresses that glaring fact?
You know, I've ridden on the Tokyo subway system and it absolutely blew me away. I could not believe that I never ever waited for a train. So I really appreciate what you're saying. I think that looking to the success of other complex systems and where human and machine collaboration enable that system to succeed, because I'm thinking about all the engineers, I'm thinking about all the people who came up with the routes and the scheduling and also built the trains, right? So I love, thank you for bringing that up. I love that you brought that up. And do you have something to add?
I actually have a lot to say. Thank you very much for the question, because it gets at the heart of the problem that complex systems are different. Number one, that Tokyo and New York will literally be a comparison between oranges and apples. I will explain one difference, that New York subway trains, you can stop them by putting fingers in them. So you know, users have the control to make the delay longer and longer, but probably those mechanisms are not present in the Japanese or Tokyo subway systems. So whenever we talk about a particular system, we can define some metrics particular for that system. Like we can define some metrics of goodness or accuracy for the tuning task particularly, but that is just one of many, many tasks at the control room. So what we were looking for is a general methodology to identify that what makes an expert an expert. How can we say that he is different from a novice? So that our interest is in the generality part, that what can we model that applies to all of the complex systems and not just developing one particular metric. Like 2 minutes could be equivalent to 10 seconds here in this example. But if you have been to my country, 2 minutes is such a short time. You can just, stand there. So, it talks about particular systems, but we're after a bigger fish, I would say. We hope that some essence of complexity that humans solve with expertise, some magic formula that we learn. But obviously that has been elusive in complex systems study. Otherwise, we would have already had some magical AI agent who can solve complex problems so well that we would have been, jobless, all of us. So that's how I would say that particular systems have particular signatures, but learning, even saying that that signature exists requires a little bit of expertise. Like without Jane here, we would have been like sightseers at the particle accelerator facilities, but she was luckily with us. So we got some work done.
Boy, this is so hard. You're trying to do the hardest thing I've been working on this kind of thing for decades. And this is the hardest thing I've ever seen in my life. You're trying to deal with a running system and there's only one of them. And if it fails, you lose somebody their PhD or whatever it is. So my question is, if you were, and you used the data that you had access to, that you could get conveniently, if you were unconstrained by money, having to interrupt the operators, all the other million constraints you have, what pieces of data would you gather in, maybe not in what order, maybe asking a little too much, but what's the piece of data that you really would love to have that you were unable to get? I'll give you an example. The one that I would love to have is basically what the operators are thinking as they're doing it. Now, you can't, of course, interrupt them and get them to do this.
Yeah.
To give you verbal protocols, but that's an example. What data would you get?
That's a great question, and one. We have actually thought about this problem, that what type of data we would get in the utopian research facility where we could collect every piece of data. So I love redundancies in data, different forms of data. So personally, we actually not personally, we tried to run an experiment. We ran an experiment where we collected all of the keystrokes and not keystrokes, mouse actions, all of the window movements, the tasks that they're doing, the time that they took for each task. Those kind of information would have been great to validate our models based on text, because text is one form of data and it's obviously not complete. These e-logs, they are short summaries based on what they could write on in a short amount of time. So different forms of information, video data from screen recordings, some machine state data, all of these are actually available at Slack, but this makes such a complex problem even more complex for data analysis. So we have been trying to make it as simple as it could go. But definitely, if we had those data, say for 1 year, we collected all of these pieces of information, each an action taken by the operators and what they logged in the text, what they took a screenshot of, the videos of the screens, all of this, if we had that, we could probably analyze it for the rest of our lives, but hopefully not. That could have had extra layers of support for any machine learning models that we have. Yeah. Yeah. I was probably, yeah.
So you're saying what would we want, not just what can we feasibly collect, even without limitations of money. Okay.
I definitely would want all of the pieces of data that I mentioned just to have the different layers of validation. But essentially, we want to know the nuances of expertise. So this type of granular data, I think, is essential to get into the heart of it. That's why I said it's a utopian dream to ask for this level of depth of expert performance. But that's how experts are affected in their performance, and that's how it matters in their performance. And I had the privilege to study expert gamers. And in some games, there are some particular bugs that experts manipulate and use to gain more points. And if you build a perfect system without those bugs, their performance actually declines and drops to very normal levels, I would say. So, the nuances of expertise, we have to understand that before trying to develop expert systems. I know, Jeff, you're an expert in expert systems as well. So the reference is that before we call an agent or an AI agent equivalent to a human expert, we need to understand what we are comparing. And, we need to understand that they're really equivalent and not just mimicking by some sort of memorization. Yeah, I will pass the mic to Wanlin because she is the main speaker. She didn't get to say.
Oh, I have
any
already
words.
speak for 15 minutes. Don't worry about me.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for the beautiful presentation. It was very insightful. And building on the subway complex systems question, I was wondering, now you're custom tailoring this AI to the control room. Once that is established, how quickly could you potentially take that AI and apply it to a different complex system?
Okay, I will start with the answer and then give you the honor to end the answer, I guess. So in terms of mathematics, I think we are at a point, if we have different tasks in the control room, we can directly translate this analysis for different tasks. But the natural language processing techniques that we use, those were kind of fine-tuned, not really fine-tuned, refined for the accelerator operations only. So we would have to look at that a little bit if we want to go outside the accelerator control room. Because, we had to make some choices, like the control room has some special words that are not really natural, undulator, a machine learning model might take it and break it into phonemes, this word undulator, undulate plus store, but it doesn't really capture the essence, capture the meaning of undulator in the control room. So we had to, kind of hardwire these things based on the data that we had. So if we want to generalize beyond the control room, we have to consider these possibilities. But in terms of the mathematics after the text has been processed, it should work pretty well because we reported only the tip of the iceberg, but we have different metrics and different measures of accuracy of the models even, that when we could tell that when it's working versus it's not. Yeah, does that address your question?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to look at a discipline where we're using code and AI is starting to write code. And one of my concerns is that usually our system experts, they learn by first becoming junior programmers. They're learning how to program and then they solve more and more complex problems. And I'm concerned that we're going to get to the point where are these experts going to come from? And I know you talked a little bit about training, but I'm wondering if just like when our kids don't learn cursive anymore, is there something underneath that that's actually instructive to the brain that we're not learning, and therefore we're not going to be as efficient as we could be as an expert?
Thank you so much for asking that. This is definitely one of like the immediate risks that our team identified when we began studying this problem, right? Experts don't appear out of thin air, as you mentioned. They grow and they start as entry-level folks. And if you automate all the entry-level positions, how are you going to grow experts? Well, that's a real and valid concern. And I think one of the reasons that our team advocates so heavily for human-centered, human in the loop, for really focusing on the people in the control room and beyond, is because we really want to emphasize that you know, we're all so excited that AI could help make our lives easier, more efficient. Sure. Maybe we're not all so excited. Maybe some of us are scared. But we also, when we ask, where can we apply AI? Which problems can we delegate to AI? That should come with an analysis of what do we lose by automating this system or handing this decision-making process over. And what you point out is one of the great things we lose. What Wan Lin pointed out about obscuring information that allows you to make critical decisions in cases of uncertainty in this kind of context is another thing we risk to lose. So I really think that that's an important thing to consider, and also perhaps is coming up in all of these areas where people have rushed to apply AI and now are only understanding the risks after the fact. And I think that one of the big advantages of human-centered design or human-in-the-loop design is really that we first start by going to the people that are doing the thing, and we ask them about their experience. And we did that for quite a few years before we ever collected any data. We talked to the operators and we asked them about their jobs. I was an operator for many years, so I had a lot to say about the things that worked and didn't work. Yeah, when we say that we want to help train people with automated tools, one of the ways we can really envision that is, can it be informational aggregation and information serving without necessarily taking away this really joyous experience of looking for yourself, of doing your own research, of going to actually talk to real people, because certainly we don't want any kind of AI instructional assistant to replace the person-on-person training. But we also have to balance that with the fact that we have more and more machines coming online now, more and more accelerators. And so we have many more novice operators and fewer experts to train each of those novice operators. So there's some balance to be struck between handing over all the decision making or all the instruction or all the computation to machine agents, or not using any kind of AI, and kind of leaving these gaps in the experience that people are having within the limitations that we have. So yeah, thank you for asking that. That's certainly a big concern of ours.
AI systems are notorious for hallucinations. You guys got any good war stories?
So we have not developed any AI yet. We have done the human-centered research to try and inform the development of future tools. There are many talented researchers like Orly Edelin, Daniel Ratner, that have worked very hard to bring computational AI tools to the control room. And I was present at the development of some of those computational tools. And in the beginning, they need a lot of help. One of the things that happens is the machine agent or AI that's trying to do a search of some multi-parameter space doesn't understand that if you move an accelerator magnet to its extreme current, you could drive the beam into the beam pipe, or you could, overwork the magnet and the power supply could fail. But people do have that understanding and that intuition. And those AI researchers worked really hard with the magnet experts and the other folks to try and put constraints on this really optimistic AI that's trying to search everywhere in the space in order to make sure that it doesn't do anything so wild in its search for success that it's actually going to damage the machine or it's going to lose the beam. That's not our research, but we have seen that happen in our control room. And we thought that that was a really good example of, you know, how the risk of blindly handing over that decision making to AI systems. Yeah.
Okay, so let's please thank Roussel, Jane, and Wan-Lin. The next of these seminars will be 2 months from now, toward the end of March. It'll be actually another application of AI. So if you're interested, please come. If you're not on our mailing list, go to a Google Slack public lectures, and there's a way to get on our mailing list so you get the announcements. And thank you folks all for participating. We love to talk about what's going on at the lab, and we're glad you come to listen. So thank you very much.